This is the industrial side. Most industrial businesses are either won or lost in the day-to-day operations. These are conversations with the operators who run these firms, talking about how they run them, what works, and what doesn't.
All right. Jochebed Zakrzeswki, Director of Marketing. Metric Marine, how are you doing today, Josh?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing really good. It's been a long time no see.
I know. Happy New Year. Did I talk to you this year? I don't know.
I think so.
Well, Happy New Year.
Now the audience knows how good our relationship is from the jump. I've heard that you have something new coming up in your life.
Yes, I'm having a baby. Very exciting. Woohoo. Another baby, a third baby, for the love of Christ.
Baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you must love not sleeping.
Apparently, right? Because I haven't slept in 2 years because I have a 2-year-old. And so this is going to be another 2 years on top of that. Yeah, I'm a soldier.
All right. No, I wish you the best. I'm not a baby number one yet, so I can just look from afar and be like, she's doing great.
Yeah, you'll get there eventually. But thank you.
Yeah. All right. So today I have an interesting topic. It does kind of tie into babies because a lot of the audience are business owners. Their business is their baby, and nobody wants to have an ugly baby. But some people do have an ugly baby. So what I mean by this metaphor is there's fun marketing where you get to sell something like athletic gear or, the new iPhone. And then there's boring marketing where you sell screws. And that's what you do at Metric Marine.
Yeah, you sell nuts and bolts and gauges and stuff like that.
What do you think of as like your ideal customer? Like who buys stuff from you?
Well, we sell specifically to the cruise industry. And so, yeah, that's the customer is the cruise lines.
So it's like really massive, huge companies.
B2B companies, yes.
And you can't market anything interesting because you don't sell anything interesting. So how do you get customers?
So there are a couple ways. The way I like to think about it is marketing to me is more than just like what you're actually selling. It's more selling you're not selling a physical thing, you're selling an emotion, in my opinion. And so that's how you get people to keep coming back, right? So in our case, for instance, we sell trustworthiness, right? And we sell reliability. That is what we market to the companies that we work with. We sell this idea that you can count on us for whatever tools and supplies and equipment that you need to keep your ship running. And if one wanted to take it a step further, one could even say we're selling experiences. Because when you go on a cruise, you're going for like a good time and a good experience. So when you work in a quote unquote boring industry, you have to figure out a way to go outside of the box. You have to figure out a way to go outside of the physical thing, outside of the specs and you have to get deeper with the customer. And so when we market to them, we market the amount of time we can save them. We market how fast we can deliver. We market the fact that we're so reliable and we're so hands-on and we have a team that will pick up the phone no matter when you call. And if we have to drive something or fly something to a different port, we'll do that for you. So reliability. In the marketing industry, I think it's way more important to figure out what emotion you're trying to sell, figure out what you're trying to make people feel when they do business with you, rather than focusing on like the actual physical thing, especially in an industry like ours.
That reminds me of a funny billboard I once saw on a highway for like an HVAC company. It was like, your wife is hot.
I love those ads.
This woman who was like, take herself and like, give us a call. And so it's like, that's really smart and it really gets to the point. But it's like, when you're trying to get a certain amount of leads in the door every day, it's some of the channels, like whether you're doing direct mail or you're trying to put even the ad on a bench, like it's hard to like keep that in mind of like if you're just sending a piece of mail, how do you deliver an experience or get people to think and stuff like that? Like it's hard to put it into practice. You mentioned in like your side business, you work with companies on their branding too. Like what if you run into a company with horrible branding and horrible marketing and all they do is just rely on referrals, which a lot of businesses are built on, but when you want to grow, it's hard to grow the amount of people when you're not bringing in new business. When you work with companies that don't have a plan, where do you even start?
So in terms of like what I do outside of Metric and helping companies really, so I like to say I help them stop being the best kept secret in the industry, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone is really good at what they do, or at least I hope you are good at what you do in your industry. But when no one knows about you, then like, what's the point,
Yeah.
right? So you have this really, really great solution, and we have to figure it out. We have to figure out how to get it to the world in the loudest, most fun, most creative way as possible. So I usually start with their messaging. Being able to articulate what you do, how you do, and how you do it differently is the difference between businesses who are branded well and businesses who aren't. When I think of like, you have to figure out your differentiator. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is to be like first in the category, which is really, really hard because everything already exists. Right? What's that saying? There's nothing new under the sun. But you can figure out a way to be new in the category in the sense that, for example, who can I give as an example?
I mean, I think
Maybe
there's, yeah, good. What are you
so
thinking?
maybe like back in the day when they were marketing mouthwash, Listerine used to have a really, really bad taste,
Yeah,
right?
I
But
remember
mouthwash
that.
is mouthwash. It's like, what are you gonna do? That's the category. But then I think Scope came along and they created a new category, and that category was mouthwash that doesn't taste bad or mouthwash that doesn't taste like medicine. So you have to figure out how to be different from everyone else in your market. And so that's where I usually start. It's like, what is your differentiator, and how can we communicate that in a way that it buys real estate in your customer's mind, right? Because it doesn't matter if your product's really great. If no one remembers you, you're wasting your time. Like the goal there is to become the Q-tips and the Band-Aid and the
Kleenex.
jacuzzi and the
Yeah.
Kleenex of the industry,
Yeah.
where your brand becomes the staple or like a synonym for what you actually do.
And I wonder how that works with, like, for instance, what you're doing with the cruise line. I mean, you're not manufacturing products, you're selling them. Like you're solving the problem of getting a lot of products together from different sources globally. You're putting it in a package and you're getting it to them when they need it. But that's almost like, I don't know. It's hard to really say what you are versus like, yeah, yeah. How do you think about it? Because you could say similarly, like e-commerce company. I know you guys started with e-commerce, but like an e-commerce company that kind of sells stuff from China. It's like, uh, it's
So
hard. It's
in
hard.
our
Yeah.
case, like we don't call ourselves a ship chandler because
Mhm.
like it is what we do, right? But I don't know, in your time of knowing us, have you ever heard us say like we are a ship chandler? We don't
No.
identify as that. We identify as an extension of the cruise line. We
Mhm.
identify as your partner, as your consolidation partner. So we take all the different things you need from all the different vendors, we buy it for you, and we send it to you. We are giving you back time. We're giving you
Mhm.
back peace of mind so you can focus on what really matters, and which is your passengers. And so again, it's just, how are you different from everybody else who does what you do? You need to figure that out and get loud about that.
And usually, I mean, usually the best case scenario, I was talking about it earlier, the best case scenario would be have a customer tell somebody who's a prospect about, why you guys are unique. Do you have any kind of like referral? Have you ever like built a referral program? Because I feel like those are pretty powerful, but it's not really the best thing to just email someone and be like, "Hey, could you send me a client or something?" And like, it's hard to manufacture. I think we're all looking for like how to build a system to get repeating actions so we could get more leads. But some of the best ways to do it are a little bit more hard to control, I would say.
In our situation at Metric, I think we just focus on doing what we do and doing it well,
Mhm.
right? Um, and so that would be my advice to people is focus on being good at what you do. Because if you're good, you won't have to ask people to refer you. They'll
Right.
automatically do it. If you think about your personal life, when you encounter a good product or a good show on Netflix, no one has to tell you. Netflix is not like, hey, Brian, we think you love this show. Will you please tell your cousin about it? No, you have a conversation with your cousin. You're like, I just watched the best show ever. You should watch it too. So when you focus on being really good at what you do, your service or your product will sell itself.
Mhm.
Because if you give customers a good enough experience, they will rave about you. And so the goal is always to make your customers essentially, in a way, become raving fans, right?
Yeah.
And the word of mouth is then natural. In our case, if we have a really good experience with one vessel, when they app port with another vessel and that vessel has the same problem, they're like, you know who solved this for me last time was actually Metric Marine. Here's their email, reach out to them. Or here's their phone number, give them a call. And so it's, from my perspective, if you focus on being good at what you do, like being good at what you do, they'll refer you without you having to ask. Sometimes it's good to ask, but like if you're just really good at what you do, they'll refer you without you having to ask.
And the other thing that you mentioned earlier was just like being loud, like making sure like you're putting a microphone on people about if you are good. Everybody remembers like staying top of mind, but like right now it's kind of like there's like a curve up and then it's gone down. Like we didn't have the internet, so it was much harder to get to people. Now it's much easier to get to people, so everybody's just flooded in every channel. Like you call someone, like they're probably gonna go and like have a spam block. You email them the spam block. You go visit them in person. They have 3 other meetings. They have 6 Zoom meetings. What actually still works right now to like be your microphone for your own company?
Being as human as possible, I think, is still working. I'll give you an example. So we all know, well, I wouldn't say we all know. I don't know who's listening to this. But in marketing, email marketing is a thing. It's a good channel for us, especially when you're in B2B, especially e-commerce. Email marketing still works in the e-commerce industry. I don't care what anybody says. But with AI these days, we all have a tendency to now sound the same because we're all running the same message through the same tools, be it Claude, be it ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever you're using. But these things are these things don't have that human experience. And so my take would be to lean into being human, right? That's how you, and not just lean into being human, lean into your own personal experience, because that's how human beings connect with human beings. It doesn't matter if you're B2B, B2C, e-commerce, it really doesn't matter. There's always a human on the other side of that screen. There's a human on the other side of the contract. There's a human on the other side of the email. And so it's finding a way to use emotion to connect to that human. So the example I was going to give, this guy's been reaching out to me. He's trying to sell me something, email after email, week after week. And I can tell, like, I'm in marketing. I send these kind of emails too. I'm not responding to this, sir. The one that finally got my attention was where it felt like he was screaming at me, but I could hear the frustration through the email where he goes, God damn it, Josh, but I'm just trying to make you some money. And I thought, that is so brave of you to come at me like that. But that's the email that I actually responded to because it had like the human behind it was frustrated at the fact that he's like, I can see you opening my emails week after week. I can see it on my tool, but you're just ignoring me. So please. And that's what sparked conversation between him and I. And so it's like lean into what makes you unique, right? But your experience, nobody else, I don't care if there's 8 billion of us on this planet, nobody else has your unique experience. And so that is your microphone. That is the way you stand out in the sea of sameness when we're all on social media now. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody, you know what I mean? Yeah. But if you lean into the experiences that you've had, people are willing to listen because someone somewhere will connect with your specific story.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think I've heard, that it's common to say like be unique, but I think the tension that, I mean, we've talked about with Metric Marine and kind of the way that you have pretty corporate customers, whether or not you have corporate customers, if you're in B2B, you kind of have this idea that you need to be very, very professional. Like you need to put things through ChatGPT and make sure there's no spelling errors, that you're using grammar appropriately, that you have everything in a single line bullet. I mean, I just started doing LinkedIn a little bit more the last couple months. And like, I have these really good ideas and then I put it in a ChatGPT and then I post it and it ends up looking exactly like everything else everybody else is posting.
Because you're stripping it away of your unique experience. And I always tell people, like, don't start with, like you said, you write out whatever you want to write out first. Don't start with the tool. Start with like your voice and your tone and your experience. And then I'm okay with using a tool to make sure your grammar is correct and you don't have a spelling mistake. And even if you do, it's the beauty of being human. I just put a post on Instagram literally yesterday, 24 hours ago. Not Instagram, I'm sorry. LinkedIn, 24 hours ago.
Hot take.
and it had a misspelling. And someone texted me, "Hey, do you want to change this?" And I was like, "No, it's part of being human.
Yeah.
Humans make mistakes. It is human to err. No, I'm not deleting the entire post and reposting it because there was a spelling error." So
Yeah.
I'm okay with, especially if you're corporate, like you want to come off proper and like make sure you are using your grammar correctly and you're not having any spelling errors, but don't strip yourself of your uniqueness by like being less human, basically, right? It's just
Yeah.
your experience, your personal experience is invaluable. That's the way I see it.
And where do you draw the line? Because for me, for instance, like I love leaning on humor. Like I think it makes everything more fun. Like if I were to start a plumbing business right now, I'd have so many like childish jokes and everything that I put it in, like the TV ads and the billboards. I would try to one up that your wife is hot one somehow. But yeah, it's like there's should you even worry that you're going too far? Like as long as you're being respectful of the end customer and you actually are communicating a message one way or the other, but the way that you're doing it is less like nobody wants to be told that you're the best. Like, I hear the car commercial and it seems like every car commercial is they won the powertrain award. Like, how did they all win the
They all safety.
award?
Oh my goodness. The other day, the dentist, not the dentist, my child's pediatrician was like, you need to get him some vitamin D drops because he's a little bit vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
So when we went back to his follow-up appointment, I was like, hey, I got the number one recommended pediatrician vitamin D drops. And he looks at me and he goes, bless your soul, they're all the number one. And basically, everybody's the best in
Yeah.
their category. What I will say is every brand is different, right? When I listen to, for example, a Gary V, right? Gary V is going to curse. Gary V is going to be dressed super down to earth. Although the other day I saw him in a suit and I almost passed out. I was like, what's
Wow.
going on? But he's basically, his concept is everyone's gone too casual. So he's going to do the opposite. And I applaud that. He's always doing the opposite of what people are doing, right? And humans have a tendency to, we want to fit in, so we do what other people are doing. I say that to say, like, the line is personal and the line is different for each individual. You should know who your brand is and who your customers are. And by knowing that, you will know what is too far and who's to say what's too far. Your people are out there and they will find you if you have the right messaging. So there's someone somewhere who is like, this guy curses, I'm not listening to him, turn that off. And then there's someone else out there that's like, he's so real, like no one else has put it like that. I needed to hear it in the way he had it or in the way he delivered it. So and some people will lean into humor and find their people. And some people will lean into sarcasm and find their people. And so it's like, it's so easy to say authentic. I hate that. I think that's the worst advice on the what does that even mean, right? But once you know who you are and who you're talking to, the line is yours to determine. You get to draw the line in the sand because your people will get you and you will get them. And everybody else doesn't matter. No matter if people don't have comments, at least one negative comment about what you're doing, you're not doing it correctly. You need to try harder because someone somewhere should be judging you because it's in human nature to be judgmental, right? So you almost want to look or seek out that criticism. And so do market your business in a way that is unique to you. This lady close to my house, she runs they take away your junk, like junk hauling business. And her thing is, I will put your junk in my trunk. And I love that for her. And now I'm always like, what do I need to throw away? Because I want her to put my junk in her trunk. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, your people will find you. Yeah. Stay true to who you are.
It's unfortunate that like everything goes back to high school because you know how like in high school, in order to be popular, you have to be homogenous. You have to be like everybody else around you. And like when you're not, you get picked on, but then you become less of yourself. But the people who grow through that and they become more of themselves, they kind of like find genuine relationships around them. And like that never ends because it's the same thing. Like if you're thinking about a business, like it's like separate personal brand from like a business brand. With a personal brand, it makes so much more sense to just be authentic. But like if you're like you're picking up trash, like you collect junk, it's like, well, everybody in my geographic area I can get to is a potential customer. So I don't want to turn anyone off. So I need to like look exactly like everybody else. But like then you like have low like efficiency in your message because it sounds like nothing. Like it doesn't sound like I'll put your
And you
junk in
don't
my
stand
truck.
out. Yeah. And you're not
Yeah.
remembered. All her trucks are pink. Like she has mastered branding, and I love that for her. And
Yeah.
she's very
Yeah.
memorable, and everybody in my neighborhood uses her because why not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, if people can just persevere past that like high school mentality of
Mhm.
wanting to fit in, that is where the magic happens. That is where your business is actually going to explode. If you think about any business that is doing really, really, really well, they've done the opposite of what the rest of the category is doing. So, like Nike did it very differently when everybody was selling shoes. Nike was like, that's not what we sell. We are like talking to people who are athletes, right? And they had a recent campaign with Kevin Hart where it's like everybody could be an athlete. I remember watching the ad and crying. I'm like, oh my God, we're all
You're
athletes.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They're not like, I've never heard them say, this is the best shoe. You should buy the shoe. Never,
Yeah.
ever, ever,
Yeah.
ever. I've never heard, who else do I love? Like, there are a bunch of brands that I use, and I've noticed that any brand I'm super, super loyal to does not run an ad where they tell you they're the best in their category. They're not talking about that, right? They just, whether it's being funny or being playful, or they just leaning into who they truly are and what makes
Mhm.
them truly unique. And so the best way to market in a boring industry is to find your uniqueness and then like be loud about it, right? So, yeah.
So that's how you kind of like set up your brand or your voice. Now, how do you get a lead? That's the part that we really care about.
So it depends on where you are in your business. Are we
Yeah.
talking to well-established business owners? Are we talking to people who are just getting started?
Let's say established. Let's say established and they've done good work. Like so it's some of the initial stuff you said. They did good work, good Google reviews. They can really do the same amount of revenue every year, even though some customers won't buy anything. But like they want to figure out how do I get to like 5 times bigger? What should I be doing over the next 5 or 10 years? What kind of
So
system can I build so that I have more leads and I can hire more salespeople and all that?
so if the first step is messaging, the second step is media. You have to figure out where your audience is hanging out, right? So if we figure out who you are and what you do and who you're talking to, now we have to decide which social media platforms these people are hanging out. And I know people are like, social media is dead. No, it's not. Please stop. It's very much still alive. And when I say media, it could be television, right?
Mhm.
It could be streaming platforms. It could be LinkedIn. It could be Facebook. Where is your audience hanging out? And then I don't believe in, I'm a minimalist in my personal life. And I like to think of myself as a minimalist marketer as well. Some people will tell you, you need to be everywhere all the time. You need to be on all the social media platforms. You need to be put. I don't believe in that. I
Right.
believe in mastering the top two platforms or media outlets where your customer hangs out. And once you've mastered those two, and I mean, have to master something, you have to have over 70% market share in that thing, right?
Yeah.
So once you've mastered those two platforms, you can start to move on. In the case of a plumbing business, if your ideal customer is on, I don't know where plumbing people hang out, if they're on Facebook and LinkedIn, then you have no business being on Twitter
Yeah.
until you've really, really figured out Facebook and LinkedIn. Right. So my step two in this sort of like framework of how I market is before we get into systems and blah, 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 like how are we going to make noise? How are we going to take our message to the world? And so it's as simple as doing your research and finding out where your audience is and meeting them there. If your audience is in 8 different places, I always say just start with the first 2 or 3. Once you've mastered them, you can bring in a fourth and a fifth. But take your time with the first 2 or 3. Don't try to be everywhere at once. You'll get there eventually, but start with the top 2.
So how does the real world play into this? Because like I know you were talking about the plumber example, like so like if I were to think of like what's the ideal customer profile, maybe somebody who isn't qualified to fixing their stuff. So I could go to Home Depot and have like a big like little poster that says like you're gonna F this shit up. Call me. And what you were saying before, like pivot away from what everyone else is doing. The world's moving towards the internet. Is there a way to move towards like the real world, or is that not realistic?
Absolutely. I think outside of like media, One thing that's coming back is people are craving connections and events and like, what are they calling them? In real life experiences, right? So depending on your industry, for example, B2B industries, that is a really, really, really good industry to lean into in-person events, right? Invite your ideal customer profile to come hang out with you. And please don't try to sell them anything. Just hang out with you. Like, and so yes, you can do it differently. Like, okay, but again, like I said, you have to meet them where they are. If you find that your audience is more into brunch, then what are you doing on Instagram? You need to be hosting a brunch every other Saturday, right? If your audience likes joining lives, then you need to be having a LinkedIn and a YouTube live every other week. You know what I mean? It's just understanding where they are and meeting them there. And so that's how I'd bring it into the real world. It's like give them the experience they're looking for and they will show up, really.
So you're a distributor. I think it'd be interesting because I know that your customer in some ways are the manufacturers. I guess on the entry point, like if you can carry their lines, then you can then use your other channels to sell it to the people who use them. I was just thinking of ideas. I wonder if you could go to like a trade show and help hype up a product for the manufacturer who you don't distribute for yet, but like get them business somehow. I think we talked about before, like potentially at a trade show, setting up a bar or whatever, and like you set it up next to someone you want to represent, then potentially a lot of people are now around that area, and you can like, hey, this is a great product over here. Like,
And
some of those things.
yeah, so like with B2B industries, we are at trade shows a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's where our audience is, and so that's where we show up. We are on LinkedIn because that's where our audience is, and that's where we show up. And so you show up and you show up. I'm not saying if you're a square person, like if you're maybe not as rough around the edges and not as loose.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you force yourself to be fun. No, I'm saying show up where your audience is as yourself and your people will be drawn to you.
And the tension I think that there always is between marketing and sales is like sales needs to hit a number right now. And so like how do you not rush relationships? Because that's where you lose the authenticity when like somebody's now a prospect and they're not like a person. You need to have prospects, but also like it's a push and pull.
I think it's understanding your sales life cycle. I think they call it in sales, right? Like how long does it actually take us to convert a customer realistically? And that's all part of like your research in the research phase. If it realistically takes 7 to 9 months to convert a customer, do not rush. Don't try to close in 3 to 4 months because then you end up losing that customer. In my experience, they don't end up sticking around. Right. So there's a lot to be said about really, really understanding the industry you're in and if you're a beginner, taking the first few months, years, weeks to figure out like what does a sales cycle look like for us? Like where we're not like super dragging our feet like a snail, but we're not super rushing them either. Like what does a comfortable sales cycle look like? And then making sure your sales and marketing team both understand that. I'm not saying that sometimes you're not going to close quicker than that. I'm just saying if you understand it, you put less pressure on yourself and less pressure on your sales team because there's an understanding around this is realistically how long it takes, right? Plus minus. So sometimes we can close way sooner. Sometimes we close a little bit later, but that's okay. I think if you're in it for the long haul, you know what I mean? You're okay with like doing it right because I have this philosophy. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you propose and someone says, I don't think we're ready yet, and then you propose the next day, and then the next day, and then
exactly.
Like, how could you get them anywhere past those objections if you haven't removed the tension and pressure, but then still kept showing up and let them kind of build more trust throughout that process?
It's all a trust thing. And so back in the day, the funnel was like this, right? There'd be awareness, like, and then trust
the good old
days. At the very bottom where they would finally do business with you. These days, I like to think of that funnel as like all of those things are happening at the same time, right? Because I could be building awareness with you on one platform, but on another platform, I'm engaging in like a different way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like things are happening simultaneously and more like this now than they are like that. And so just understanding like realistically, okay, based on our industry, based on our experience, it might take this person this long to convert versus that person that long to convert. And where do we find balance? We don't want to be pushy salespeople. Nobody likes a pushy salesman.
So let me ask you this, like what's something about marketing, like a myth about marketing that you'd like to debunk? Could be about anything.
I think people think of marketing as more of a creative thing than a logical thing, and that's not true to me because marketing is just as much as about the numbers as sales
Right.
is. Realistically, that's where the analytics and stuff come in and figuring out like what's working and what's not working. But marketing, as a Libra who's like very big on like balance, right?
Yeah.
Marketing feels perfect for me because it's really about balance. Like, what are we doing versus like what are the numbers saying we're doing, right? And not getting carried away in either or. Because I think a lot of times, especially if you are like maybe corporate or B2B, leadership only cares about the numbers. They don't care about the creative. They don't care about any of that. They just like, show me the numbers. But I would say if you're marketing or you're an entrepreneur or you're like a marketer yourself, it there's it's the best of both worlds. Marketing is, I don't think it's just creative and I don't think it's just analytical either. I think it's like it sits beautifully in the middle. I think that's one myth that I seem to encounter about marketing because people look at advertising and think that's such a creative and fun job, but yeah, but it's also like a little bit analytical, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's another myth about marketing?
Do you think it can ever go away? Like, I think there's a lot of companies that would rather just have sales and sales only.
That's true. And to those companies, I say good luck. Let me know how long you last, basically. I think so. If we talking message, then media, I think management would be the third thing, right?
Okay.
Systems, having systems in place. You've heard of vibe coding. People
Mhm.
now have something called vibe marketing, where you can use all these AI tools and you can just instruct them on what to do. And so I think we are going to lean more towards that than just marketing disappearing. I don't think it will ever disappear. But I do think a lot of it will become automated in a sense. And so, as a good marketer, it's important to know how to use the different tools that will help the automation. And managing those different tools, I think, will be a big one.
And how do you set, like, if you're a business owner, how do you set like marketing budget? I know I guess there's some things like 5 to 10% of revenue or something like that. Like, I guess that's just kind of very generic. I don't know where that
It is,
percentage
I
even
don't know
came.
where that percentage came from, but it is usually 5 to 10% of revenue. I heard a really good one the other day where I forget how he said, but it was a percentage of sales,
Yeah.
basically. And each business is unique. What I will say is not okay is to have zero marketing budget, right? Because
Right.
what ends up happening is if, for example, I have a good product and you have a good product, right? We have the same product, but I'm backed by $100,000. I can show up in way more places than you can. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I can make a lot more noise and I can buy a lot more real estate in people's minds. And so inevitably, I will be way more successful than you would.
Yeah.
And so when people are deciding their marketing budget, I just want them to keep that in mind. It's
Got it.
about
Okay.
the amount of people who know who you are. It's about the amount of people who remember who you are. And so you have to decide how important is that to me? And then you set your budget and you use that to decide like where you want to show up and how much you want to pay to show up on different places. I will say it's always good to, like back in the day when Google first started, right? AdSense was like incredibly cheap. It didn't
Yeah.
make any sense. The new version of that right now, I think, is Reddit, right? So as a business owner, if you can hop on Reddit ads, that's where you need to be, especially for this industrial sort
Mhm.
of like
Mhm.
market that or
Mhm.
industry that we're in,
Yeah.
because you can really talk to your people there. You can go to subreddits and find like, if you're in the plumbing business again, you can find plumbers in this area and then
Right.
market to them specifically,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Or people like if someone's like, my pipe's busted, what do I do? Like if you're an actual plumber yourself, like I guess you could be giving advice similar because it's harder to just go on LinkedIn and be like, you need to clog your drain every 3 to 4 months. But yeah, but then the other thing you mentioned Reddit, I've heard that some of these AI tools are actually using that as one of their favorite sources.
That is their favorite
Yeah.
source. And it's very interesting because they are not intelligent enough yet to check if the person saying that this company is the best is that person. They don't care. Right now, they're just like, oh, this person said this company is the best, and they run with it. And so, if I would have known better in 2010, instead of being in high school, I would have been buying AdSense on Google to like market myself, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the same as what's happening on Reddit right now. It's like people in the industrial, well, like people in that industry need to get on Reddit fast to do what whether it's answering your ideal client's biggest question or helping them solve a biggest problem or even running ads against like whatever the questions are, you need to be there. And so, yeah, that's what I would say.
Heard it from the mouth of Jochebed herself. So if the audience wants to keep following up with you, to catch up, is there any way that they would like people to be able to connect?
I'm a human, so I'm ever evolving. So it's like I could be, I don't know, I could wake up tomorrow and decide I want to be a dentist. Who knows? I don't know. So the easiest way is my website, imjochebed.com. And it's like my little corner of the internet where no matter what I have going on, it's on there. So that's one way. Then I'm also on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Where else do I hang out? I mostly hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram, I think.
Right. Put those in the show notes if anyone needs to talk marketing or if you need your teeth cleaned.
Who knows? Maybe in another life, right?
All right, Josh, it's been awesome talking to you. We can
Thank
catch up
you.
again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.